I was in the cereal aisle scanning the shelves for my favorite brand when I felt a small pair of arms wrapped tightly around my legs. I looked down and saw a little girl, maybe 5 years old, with messy blonde pigtails and wide, tear-filled blue eyes. She pressed her cheek against my jeans and whispered a single, trembling word, "Mommy." My breath caught in my throat. "Sweetheart, I'm not your mom," I said, bending down to her level. Her tiny hands clung harder, as if I was the only safe thing in the world. Before I could ask her where her parents were, a tall man came running from the other end of the aisle. His face drained of all color when his eyes met mine. He stopped a few feet away, pulled out his phone, and spoke into it in a low, urgent tone. "It's her," he said. I froze. The man's voice was sharp and certain, like he had been searching for me for years. I didn't know him. I didn't know the little girl. But in that moment, the entire store seemed to close in on me. Over the loudspeaker, the grocery store manager's voice cut through the air. "Attention all customers, please remain where you are. Security, close the exit doors." Around me, shoppers paused mid-step. The sliding doors at the front locked shut with a mechanical click. My stomach churned as I realized whatever was happening, I was now at the center of it. Saturday mornings in Springfield, Missouri were usually my time to reset. I had a comfortable routine: stop by the grocery store, pick up the week's essentials, and then drive over to my mother's house to help with chores and keep her company while she recovered from knee surgery. I'm Rachel Linden, 34 years old, a high school art teacher who finds comfort in predictable schedules and familiar places. My life wasn't thrilling, but it was steady. That morning, I pushed my cart down the aisles, half focused on my list and half listening to an old George Strait song playing overhead. The store smelled faintly of warm bread from the bakery. The clink of glass jars in my cart mixed with the chatter of families debating cereal brands. I passed the produce section, tossed in a bunch of bananas, and started toward the breakfast aisle. I was wearing a soft green sweater and jeans, my hair tied back in a loose ponytail. My phone sat in my purse, buried under my wallet and reusable bags. I didn't even glance at it. Nothing about the morning hinted that my life was about to tilt in a way I could never have prepared for. The store was busy, but not chaotic. A few kids darted between their parents' carts, laughing and shouting about cookies. I've always liked kids, which is why the small, sudden presence of one didn't startle me at first. I was reaching for a box of oatmeal when I felt it, a warm, tight hug around my legs. At first, I thought a child had mistaken me for their mom, like happens sometimes in crowded stores. But when I looked down, something in my chest tightened. The girl was maybe 5, with pale blonde hair pulled into pigtails that were a little crooked, like someone had rushed to get her ready. Her cheeks were flushed and streaked with the remnants of tears. She was wearing a yellow sundress patterned with tiny white daisies, and on her feet were worn pink sandals that looked too big for her. She looked straight up at me with wide blue eyes. "Mommy," she whispered. Her voice cracked, like the word had been sitting in her throat for a long time. I bent down, forcing a gentle smile. "Sweetheart, I'm not your mom. Are you lost? Where's your family?" Her small hands gripped my sweater at the shoulders, refusing to let go. "Why did you leave?" she asked, her voice breaking again. My heart twisted. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else," I said softly. "Let's find the store employees so they can help you." But before I could stand up with her, the sound of heavy, fast footsteps echoed from the other end of the aisle. I turned my head just as a tall man appeared, moving toward us at a near run. He looked to be in his early 40s, broad-shouldered, wearing a wrinkled plaid shirt and dark jeans. His face was pale, his expression locked between shock and fury. He stopped a few feet from me, his eyes fixed on mine as if confirming something. Without looking at the little girl, he pulled a phone from his pocket and spoke quickly into it. "It's her," he said. The words weren't shouted, but they sliced through me all the same. I froze, every instinct screaming that something was very wrong. My mind scrambled. Who was this man, and why was he saying that about me? The girl clung tighter, burying her face against my shoulder. The man's eyes darted briefly to her, then back to me. He lowered the phone and took a step forward. "You're not going anywhere." I stood, holding my ground. "I don't know who you are, and I don't know this child. You need to step back." He didn't. His gaze was sharp, unblinking. Suddenly, a voice boomed over the store's PA system. Attention all customers. Please remain where you are. Security, close the exit doors. A faint electronic buzz followed by a mechanical click signaled the front doors locking. Shoppers around us paused mid-step. Someone in the frozen foods section turned their head to watch. A mother in the cereal aisle pulled her own child closer to her side. Two uniformed security guards emerged from opposite ends of the store, their radios crackling with static. One positioned himself near the bakery, the other near the main entrance. Both kept their eyes on us. The man's grip on his phone tightened. He muttered something I couldn't catch, then looked back at me. "You think you can just disappear and no one will find you?" "I don't know you," I said again, my voice firmer this time. "This is a mistake." But doubt crept in. Not in me, but in the eyes of the people watching. I could feel it, the subtle shift as their gazes flicked from him to me, weighing his words against my denial. I scanned the crowd for someone I knew, someone who could vouch for me. But the faces were strangers. The fluorescent lights seemed too bright. My sweater felt suddenly too warm. The little girl's arms clung to my neck, and I could feel her shallow, rapid breaths against my skin. A woman pushing a cart stopped nearby, whispering to the man beside her. The security guard near the bakery took a step closer, his eyes flicking between me and the man. I could tell he was assessing whether to intervene or wait for instructions. I wanted to shout for help, but my instincts told me to choose my words carefully. The wrong move could make me look exactly like whatever this man was accusing me of being. I swallowed hard and forced my voice to stay calm. "Please, get the store manager and call the police. I am not this child's mother." The man's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "We'll see about that." In that moment, surrounded by strangers locked inside a store that suddenly felt more like a cage, I understood something. This wasn't a misunderstanding that would clear itself up in a few minutes. This was about to get much worse. The grocery store no longer felt like a familiar Saturday errand. It had turned into a stage, and I was the unwilling center of attention. People were staring openly now, their faces a mix of curiosity and suspicion. The little girl's arms clung to my neck, her small fingers gripping like she thought I might vanish if she let go. The man stood just a few feet away, blocking the end of the aisle. His eyes were sharp and unblinking, his jaw tight. His phone was still in his hand, but he wasn't speaking into it anymore. He was just watching me, as if daring me to try and move. "You're making a mistake," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've never seen you or this child before." He stepped closer. "Stop lying. You can't run this time." "I'm not lying. My name is Rachel Linden. I teach art at Springfield High School. I came here to buy groceries and nothing else. Get the police here now." The security guard from the bakery side moved toward us. "Sir, ma'am, I'm going to need you both to step apart. Let's calm this down." "She's my ex-wife," the man said quickly, his voice rising. "She disappeared with my daughter 5 years ago. She's been hiding under another name. This is kidnapping. Arrest her." "That's insane," I shot back. "I have never been married to you, and I have never met your daughter. You're making up a story." The guard looked between us, clearly unsure who to believe. The man's certainty seemed to sway him more than my denial. I could feel the weight of that doubt pressing on me. The little girl looked up at me with trembling lips. "Why did you leave me?" she whispered again. Her words hit me like a punch. "Honey, I'm not your mom," I said softly. "I promise we're going to get you to your real family." The man's eyes flared. "Her real family is me, and you're not taking her anywhere." More shoppers had gathered now. Some whispered into their phones, others just watched like it was unfolding entertainment. My skin prickled under their stares. I felt the sting of injustice already forming in their eyes, as if they had decided my guilt before hearing the truth. The store manager, a heavy-set man with a name tag that read Derek, arrived, flanked by another security guard. His voice was firm. "What's going on here?" The man jumped in first. "She's my ex-wife, took my kid years ago. I just found them. Lock her up until the police get here." "That is a lie," I said, stepping forward. "My name is Rachel Linden. I live on Meadow Lane. I teach at the high school. I've never seen him before." The manager raised a hand. "All right, both of you, calm down. Security, keep them separated, and call the police." As one of the guards moved to block the man from getting closer, I pulled my phone from my purse with shaking hands. I opened the camera and hit record, my voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. My name is Rachel Linden. I do not know this man or this child. I am being accused of something I did not do. I want law enforcement here now. The man laughed under his breath. You think filming this is going to save you? I turned the camera toward him. Yes, because I have nothing to hide. That was when I heard a familiar voice from behind me. Rachel, is that you? I spun and saw Mr. Turner, a retired police officer who was a close friend of my mother's. He was holding a basket of apples, his brow furrowed as he took in the scene. What's going on here? He asked, stepping toward me. The man pointed at me. She kidnapped my daughter. You're looking at a fugitive. Mr. Turner's eyes narrowed. That's not true. I've known Rachel since she was a teenager. She's lived here her whole life. Who are you? The man straightened, clearly thrown off by Mr. Turner's confidence. I'm her husband. She's lying to everyone. That's enough, Mr. Turner said sharply. He put himself between us, his voice low but commanding. Derek, get the police on the line and tell them I'm here. I'll stay until they arrive. The store manager nodded and spoke urgently into his radio. I kept recording, my hand steady now. Mr. Turner's presence gave me something solid to hold onto, but the tension in the air didn't ease. The man was still glaring at me like he could burn holes through my skin. Shoppers whispered. A woman near the dairy section shook her head, muttering to her husband. A teenager held up his phone, filming everything. The scene had become a public trial with no rules and no fairness, and I was the accused. The little girl shifted in my arms, her head resting on my shoulder. She didn't pull away, but she also didn't speak again. I wondered if she was confused, scared, or told to believe a story that wasn't true. I glanced at the nearest security guard. How long until the police arrive? They're on their way, he said, avoiding my eyes. Every second felt longer than the last. I could hear the man's breathing from where I stood, slow and deliberate, like he was waiting for something to happen. My chest tightened at the thought that whatever game he was playing, he'd already planned it in his head. I shifted my weight and adjusted the girl on my hip, determined to keep my voice strong. When the police get here, you're going to see you've made a huge mistake, and I will not forgive you for putting this child through this. The man's expression didn't change. We'll see whose mistake this is. The waiting felt unbearable. The police would be here soon, but in a situation like this, minutes stretched into lifetimes. I knew that if I stood there silently letting this man's accusations fill the air, the onlookers would write their own version of the story, and that version might stick even after the truth came out. I adjusted my grip on the little girl who was getting heavier in my arms. Her head rested against my shoulder, her breathing uneven. I didn't know if she was exhausted, scared, or just trying to disappear into herself. I glanced at the man again. He stood with his arms folded, watching me with the kind of cold calculation that made my skin crawl. That was the moment I decided I couldn't just wait for the police to clear this up. I had to take control of the narrative before it got twisted beyond recognition. I took a step forward, raising my voice so it carried across the aisle. My name is Rachel Linden. I live in Springfield. I have never met this man or this child before. I am not her mother. I am recording this because I want the truth to be clear to anyone who sees this later. Several shoppers turned toward me more directly now. Some lowered their phones. Others looked uncomfortable. The store manager shifted his weight, clearly not sure if he should intervene. The man's voice was low but cutting. You can play the victim all you want, Rachel. It won't work this time. I turned the camera toward him. If you know my name, then you also know you're lying. You have no proof, because none exists. Mr. Turner moved a step closer to me, his voice steady. Rachel, keep filming. Don't stop until the police are standing here. The man laughed under his breath, but his eyes never left mine. You always were dramatic. That jab didn't land because I knew it wasn't true. I had never been in any kind of scene like this. My life was quiet, steady, even boring most of the time. But now I was standing in the middle of a store with people filming me, security blocking the doors, and a stranger claiming I was his runaway ex-wife. I needed witnesses to hear me before they saw only his version, so I turned toward the crowd. If anyone here knows me, please speak up. I teach art at Springfield High. I've lived here my entire life. This man is accusing me of kidnapping a child I have never seen before today. A murmur rippled through the group. One older woman near the bread aisle tilted her head. "I think I've seen you at the farmer's market," she said softly. "Yes," I said, nodding toward her. "That's me. I'm the one who paints the local landscapes." Mr. Turner pointed at the man. "Sir, do you have any legal documents to prove what you're saying?" The man's jaw tightened. "I don't need to prove anything. She's right here, and so is my daughter." Mr. Turner's voice sharpened. "You absolutely do need proof, because what you're describing is a federal crime, and if you're wrong, you're going to answer for it." The man shifted his weight, glancing at the security guards like he was waiting for them to step in on his side. They didn't. I decided to take it further. I unlocked my phone, switched the camera to live stream, and hit the button. My voice was calm but deliberate. "This is live. My name is Rachel Linden. I am in the Springfield Market grocery store. This man is accusing me of kidnapping his daughter. This is not true. The police are on their way." The man's eyes narrowed. He took a step forward, but Mr. Turner blocked him. "You're not going near her," Mr. Turner said, his voice leaving no room for argument. The live stream's viewer count began to climb in the corner of my screen. Comments started appearing. Some people were asking what was happening, others telling me to stay strong. That gave me a small surge of relief. At least now there was a record of this moment that couldn't be erased. The store manager cleared his throat. "Rachel, maybe you should wait in my office until the police get here." I shook my head. If I go somewhere out of sight, that gives him room to tell more lies. I'm staying right here where everyone can see me. The man smirked, but I caught the faintest flicker of discomfort in his expression. Maybe the fact that I was refusing to back down wasn't part of his plan. I looked down at the girl. "Sweetheart, can you tell me your name?" She hesitated, then whispered something too quietly for anyone else to hear. "That's a pretty name," I said gently. "Do you know where your mom is?" Her eyes darted toward the man. She didn't answer. That hesitation told me everything. She wasn't sure what she was allowed to say. I shifted my attention back to him. "You're scaring her. If you truly care about her, you'd stop this right now." His lips pressed into a thin line, but he didn't move. I held my phone higher, speaking again to the live stream. "If anyone watching knows this man or this little girl, please contact the Springfield Police Department right now. They are on their way to this store." A voice crackled over one of the security guards' radios. "Units 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. That was all I needed to hold steady. I locked eyes with the man. "When those officers walk in, we're going to get the truth, and I promise you I'm not afraid of it." For the first time since he appeared, his stare faltered. He glanced toward the entrance, then back at me, like he was calculating whether to stay or try to slip out. But the exits were still locked, and there was nowhere for him to go. I tightened my grip on the girl and straightened my shoulders. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was making sure this child didn't end up in the wrong hands. The sound of sirens grew louder outside the store. Even through the thick glass doors, the wail was sharp and urgent. The man's eyes flicked toward the entrance again. The little girl stirred in my arms, her head lifting slightly as if she could sense that help was near. 2 Springfield police officers stepped inside as soon as the security guard unlocked the doors. Both were in uniform, one tall and lean with short brown hair, the other stockier with a trimmed gray beard. They scanned the store quickly before approaching the center of the aisle where we stood. The taller officer's voice was firm. "What's going on here?" Before I could speak, the man jumped in, pointing at me. "That's my ex-wife. She kidnapped my daughter 5 years ago. I just found them here. She's using a fake name." The gray-bearded officer turned to me. "Ma'am, is that true?" I shook my head without hesitation. "Absolutely not. My name is Rachel Linden. I've lived in Springfield my entire life. I teach at the high school. I have never seen this man or this child before today. I was shopping when she ran up to me and called me Mommy. A moment later, he showed up and started accusing me." The taller officer looked at the little girl. "Sweetheart, can you tell me your name?" She glanced at me, then at the man. Her lips trembled. Finally, she whispered her name. The gray-bearded officer nodded gently. "Do you know this woman?" The girl shook her head slowly. "She's not my mommy. She just looks like her." A ripple of murmurs moved through the gathered crowd. The man's jaw tightened, his hands balling into fists at his sides. The taller officer looked at him sharply. "Sir, do you have custody paperwork or any documentation that this is your daughter?" The man hesitated. "I don't need paperwork. She's mine." The officer's voice hardened. "Yes, you do, especially since you're making a criminal accusation." The store manager stepped forward. "Officers, I think you should know. The man was speaking into his phone before security closed the exits. I heard him say, 'It's her.' He sounded urgent, like he had been looking for her." The gray-bearded officer turned to the man. "Who were you talking to?" "That's none of your business," the man snapped. "Actually, it is," the officer replied, "because if you're violating a custody agreement or a restraining order, we need to know right now." Mr. Turner, who had been standing watch beside me, spoke up. "I know Rachel. She's never left Springfield. This man is lying, and you should check his record." The taller officer pulled a small tablet from his pocket and typed quickly. Within seconds, his expression shifted. He looked at his partner and gave a subtle nod. The gray-bearded officer stepped forward. "Sir, there's an active restraining order against you filed by your ex-wife. You're not permitted within 100 yards of your daughter." The man's face flushed red. "That's ridiculous. She's my kid. That woman," he jabbed a finger toward me, "is helping her hide." I stood my ground. "I've never met your ex-wife or your daughter. You've mistaken me for someone else." The taller officer took a step toward the man. "Sir, you need to put your hands behind your back." He resisted at first, taking a half step back, but the officer's tone left no room for argument. "Now." The man's jaw worked, his eyes darting between me, the officers, and the girl. Finally, he turned, and the taller officer cuffed him. The sound of the metal closing around his wrists was sharp and final. The little girl's eyes widened. She clutched my sweater for a moment longer before the gray-bearded officer gently lifted her from my arms. "You're safe now," he told her quietly. From the back of the store, a woman's voice broke through the hum of whispers. "Lila!" Everyone turned. A woman in her early 30s came running down the aisle. Her dark blonde hair pulled into a loose braid, her face pale but determined. She dropped to her knees as the officer set the girl down. The child bolted into her arms. The woman hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm here now." The officer addressed her gently. "Ma'am, we believe he violated the restraining order." She nodded, her voice trembling. "He's been trying to find us for years. We moved to stay safe. I don't know how he even knew we were here today." The taller officer gestured toward me. "Ma'am, this is Rachel. She protected your daughter until we got here." The woman looked up at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you. I can't imagine what could have happened if you hadn't been here." I shook my head. "I'm just glad she's safe." The officers led the man toward the entrance. He didn't look at me again, his expression unreadable. The sliding doors opened and sunlight spilled into the store as they escorted him outside. The store's atmosphere shifted instantly. People began to move again, carts rolling, conversations resuming, but the tension still hung faintly in the air. The manager placed a hand on my shoulder. "You handled yourself well, Rachel. Not everyone would have stayed that calm." Mr. Turner smiled faintly. "You did more than stay calm. You made sure the truth came out." I nodded, still feeling the adrenaline humming through my veins. I looked toward the woman and her daughter. The girl gave me a small, shy wave before turning back to her mother. As I gathered my cart and started toward the checkout, I realized my groceries were still only half collected. But in that moment, it didn't matter. What mattered was that a child was safe. A lie had been stopped, and the truth had been heard by everyone who needed to hear it. The police took the man away, and the store slowly returned to its usual rhythm, though the air still felt heavier than before. Shoppers went back to their carts, but every so often I caught someone glancing my way. Some gave me small nods of respect. Others avoided eye contact entirely. Mr. Turner walked with me to the checkout. "You did the right thing, Rachel. You stayed calm, you spoke up, and you kept her safe. That little girl will remember that." I managed a small smile. I just didn't want him to take her. She was terrified. At the register, the cashier scanned my items slowly, her eyes flicking toward me with quiet curiosity. When she handed me my receipt, she said softly, "I saw the whole thing." "You were brave." Outside, the air was cool and fresh. Mr. Turner insisted on driving me home, and I didn't argue. The adrenaline had faded, leaving me exhausted. My green sweater felt heavier now, like it had absorbed every ounce of tension from the store. When we pulled up to my mother's house, I saw her sitting by the window. She waved as I got out of the car, but her smile faded when she saw my face. "Rachel, what happened?" she asked the moment I stepped inside. I set the groceries on the kitchen counter and told her everything, from the moment the little girl hugged me to the second the police led the man away. She listened without interrupting, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When I finished, she reached over and took my hand. "This world can change in an instant. You kept your head, and that's what made the difference. You protected her, and you protected yourself." I nodded, feeling the weight of the truth in her words. "I just hope she's safe from him for good." "She has a mother who clearly loves her," my mom said, "and now she knows there are strangers in this world who will stand up for her too." That night I sat at my kitchen table, replaying the day in my mind. It struck me how quickly a normal morning had turned into something that could have changed my life forever if I had stayed silent. The thought chilled me. I realized that speaking up wasn't just about defending myself. It was about making sure the truth was heard loudly enough to cut through lies before they could take root. The next morning, I received a message on my phone from an unfamiliar number. It was the girl's mother. She thanked me again, told me her daughter had slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, and said she would never forget what I did. She called me a stranger who felt like family for a few minutes in a grocery store aisle. I smiled at that. In a world where people often look the other way, I had chosen to stand still, speak up, and fight for the truth. And that choice had mattered. As I put my phone down, I thought about the lesson the day had left me with. You never know when someone will need you to be their voice. And when that moment comes, you cannot afford to hesitate. If you like this story, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the power of speaking the truth. Comment with your thoughts and subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove one person's actions can change everything. That day in the grocery store taught me that the truth only matters if you fight for it. I could have stayed quiet, hoping the police would sort it out, but silence can let lies grow. By speaking up, I protected myself and a little girl who just needed someone to keep her safe.